ladies and gentlemen, they admitted it. They absolutely admitted it. So, in court today, with my ongoing, 9-month saga now, they basically admitted that I don't really have much rights at all as a homeowner, which is very bizarre, because if you have a dialogue with a typical American progressive whose views are surely being informed by, channels like TYT, they would tell you the exact opposite. I am the one, I have all the money, I have all the power and fancy attorneys and blah, 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 blah. Right. I think this is yet another example of the necessity for communication, right? You have one side, right? In this case, it's not left-right, right? It's tenant-landlord. You got one side, the tenant, in their little tenant bubble, right? Consuming media that is friendly to them, that's maintaining this bubble, telling them certain information, certain details, right? Evil landlords, greedy landlords, and the poor people being kicked out of their homes, right? Then you have the landlords who are being crushed by a lot of these half-assed policies, theoretical good intentions, but typical bad execution, right? That's what you get from Democrats. They'll talk about valid issues that should be addressed, and they'll come up with ideas that I think a good way to describe them are good draft ideas, right? But you don't execute your draft, right? Your draft is your first draft, your first crack at it. You're supposed to find out the problems with the draft and then fix those problems, and then you execute the official version. Well, we don't do that. We execute the draft and we keep the draft just running and running and running. And then because of these two echo chambers, the damage is kept away from the people who could put pressure on these politicians to fix it, right? So let's get into the specific details on what was discussed today in court, which was, wow. I have a 4-family home. I have access to all the units except for one. The one where I've got a guy with months of trash on his deck. Refuses to remove the trash. I had to send him, many times I asked him to do it politely, send him a legal letter, and gave him his legal 10 days. It's a notice to cure, right? Conduct of the tenant is in violation of the lease. You request that they make a correction, and they have 10 days to do so. After that, unfortunately, the only thing that as a landlord you can do is to evict them. And the lack of communication, again, between both sides is allowing that particular problem to exist. Now, what's the problem that I'm referring to? Think about that. So you got a guy who's living in your house and doesn't want to take the trash out, right? And the law allows you to ask them and then send them a legal letter. And then if they refuse, then the only thing that you're left to do is to evict. Think about that for a second. So for a simple matter as taking trash off the deck, the only thing that I can do is to remove somebody from their home. Now, someone in the progressive circles who would claim to be so outraged and concerned about people being kicked from their homes, but yet they will do nothing to change these kinds of policies where that's the only thing the landlord can do, right? If I as a landlord violate the rules, of which there are many, there are many ways to hold me accountable, right? There's fines, right? You can call someone and have somebody same day come up and, basically push me to correct my action, my failure to do whatever I'm supposed to do. But as a tenant, it's just evict, that's it. Oh, you don't follow rules? Okay, out on the street. But wait a minute, isn't this the kind of thing that supposedly the progressives are against? People being kicked on the street? But here's the irony. The way that they, again, this bubble thinking, if they hear this video, what's the first thing that's going to come to mind? Is it going to be, oh, wow, let's balance things out. Everyone should be held accountable. Just because you're a tenant and you don't have as much money necessarily as a landlord, that doesn't mean that you get to just do whatever. Right? No, that's not the first thought process. The first thought process is, how can we stop landlords from being able to evict someone for simply having trash on the property, a minor thing like that? So again, the approach is not to address the actual issue, the unsanitary conditions, the out of control tenant, the taking away of the rights of other tenants to enjoy their property without dealing with rats and rodents and flies brought by somebody else's trash. That's not the focus. The focus is, we got to go against the evil landlord who barely has any rights as it is, but let them tell it that's not true. Let's take away the one thing. So all we give him is a hammer, right? The only tool we give him is a hammer, sledgehammer at that, right? The only tool you give the landlord is a sledgehammer. So the landlord is sitting there, and maybe he just wants a certain behavior to stop, like, hey, stop keeping trash all over, stop bringing rodents. But when he looks in his toolbox, all that's in there is a sledgehammer. And you're concerned about the fact that the sledgehammer is pretty brutal, rather than, hey, let's provide the landlord with additional tools. Because think about it, this is my home. I have the responsibility to make sure that all my tenants are able to enjoy their homes, keep them safe, right? And allow them to be able to live in peace. But the only tool I have to be able to do so is a sledgehammer. Kick them out, kick them out, kick them out, kick them out. And again, the progressives, they would be all concerned about kicking out. But that's the only tool that we've been given. Give us more tools, right? Why is it that a tenant can just act up and do whatever he wants, and the city can't do anything? Not even police. Same progressives talk about how police, they're killing people, police brutality, all this kind of stuff, and no-knock warrants. Those same police, there's no no-knock warrants for tenants, right? So you're doing all kind of craziness, harassing people, being a nuisance to the neighborhood and your neighbors, and there's no no-knock, right? There's literally just a knock. They can knock on your door and they can talk to you, but if you choose to just ignore the police, you can ignore the police as a tenant, right? Obviously, with the exception of extremes. So this is the only unit I don't have access to, right? This guy wasted 60,000 gallons of water in 1 month. Admits that he knew the water was running, so he sat there and let that happen. That's a $3,000 water bill that I'm gonna have to pay a guy who hasn't gotten rent from 2 tenants for 8 months, right? $16,000 or more were essentially stolen from me with the help of the government and the progressive policies, right? So with all that money being taken away from me, who's not a 1%er, right? So that money make, big deal. Like, my credit is being destroyed, my reserves have drained up. I'm taking on all that damage, and now on top of that, I got to come up with $3,000 to pay a water bill just because someone decided to sit there and let the water run. No consequences, no accountability, no nothing. The only tool I have is a sledgehammer, and to get that sledgehammer out of my toolbox, it's a crazy intricate combination with like 1,000 different numbers, and you have to stand on 1 foot, and you have to walk around the earth 1 or 2 times, I forget how many times, just to open that box, right? So here's the deal. My fancy attorney tried to get me access to that unit, because think about another emergency happening and I can't access the unit, right? This is where we're at right now. Today in court, I thought for a second, and this is not malicious, this is just legit, like, what am I supposed to do? I thought I might need to buy like a sledgehammer or something, because in an emergency, I don't have access to a unit in my building. There's a fire, there's a gas leak, right? I I don't have access to it. So I need to, if this is what I'm being forced to do, I need to adjust. So that means I need to find alternate means that in the event of emergency, I can get in there. There's a fire. These very people who are refusing me access are unconscious in there. And I can't get them out because I don't have access. But here's the other implication of that. I've not been inside the unit since I purchased the property. I got no idea what it looks like, and these people are very malicious. And I'm already in anticipation of them doing damage to the property, as if they haven't caused enough damage to me and my family. I mean, this is extending beyond me. This is now affecting 3 people in my family, including myself. There are 3 people who are essentially homeless as a result of what's happening. There is a special needs child who is one of them. My sister, who every time my dad calls, I get this panic. And it's happened several times. I hear the voice in my head of my father saying to me, "Your sister's dead." Not trying to be dramatic, just telling you the facts. This is where things have come to, where I have to be worried. Maybe my sister might have an emotional break and commit suicide or something. I'm very close with my sister. We normally are able to support each other when we need. She needs support right now, and I can't do that for her. And as a result, she's in a very bad place right now. So the same progressives who are worried about homelessness support policies that lead to homelessness. On one hand, you have someone who, for whatever reason, is unable to take care of themselves. And to resolve that issue, you take multiple people who can take care of themselves and compromise their ability to take care of themselves so that they can be homeless. Right? This is like the eat the rich mentality, only being applied to regular people who have to work for a living. Right? Because I am financially able to purchase a home and these people are not, let's compromise the home where I could lose the home, and let's also put this person on the street so that this other person can live in their property for free. So what's the situation? The situation right now is this guy is above the law from now until he leaves, and who knows how long that's going to take. We tried to bring up the issue of access to the unit in court. The judge completely sidestepped it and put it in the hands of the attorneys. The free attorney, right? I'm the one that has to pay for my attorney. Meanwhile, these people who are creating all this chaos don't have to pay a dime. They're not paying rent. They're not paying legal fees. Their free attorney is a weasel. So, left to my attorney and this guy, not very optimistic. But what does this mean? This means that just before they're about to leave, they can go and do a bunch of damage to the property. When challenged, claim that it was always like that. I would be unable to challenge their statements because I don't have access to the unit. I don't know what it looks like right now. So I can't be able to argue in court that they've done something. So they have a lot of latitude to go and do all kinds of damage. Again, consider that they have cost me already tens of thousands of dollars of damage. right? I'm not getting any of that back. And then they can add on thousands and thousands more, and I'll have no recourse. What am I supposed to do? They claim, oh, it was always like that. What do I say? Oh, you're lying. Based on what? I don't even know what it looks like. So they're in a property, living for free, and currently they can go and do whatever they want to do, and there is little chance of any consequences. $3,000 water bill, city water wasted, no consequences. Damage my property before they leave, no consequences. But if I don't provide a garbage can for them, instant consequences. What does this atmosphere create? This creates an animosity between landlords and tenants. Both sides get defensive, right? Because landlords, you force them to take matters into their own hands, which is going to lead them to be doing stuff they shouldn't be doing, which is going to add to the rhetoric of the evil landlord, right? And some of them are going to end up getting themselves in serious trouble, obviously, because they can be held accountable. Serious legal trouble. That information can be used to further divide the two sides. So tenants hearing about, oh, what this crazy landlord did, that won't hear what the tenant did that led the landlord to do that. It'll further this idea of like landlords are just satanic people. They're not just regular people. Obviously you have slumlords. Obviously you have people who are just disgusting human beings. Landlords and tenants, right? But the general idea that just landlord itself, you know, you think about landlords and that it's just a group of evil people, not just homeowners that are providing housing, right? Someone that has enough money to purchase a big home and keep it to themselves, take up a lot of space in town just for them. Could be just one person. Instead of doing that, that person has chosen to take that same money and purchase a multifamily unit, which is very important to housing. The existence of multifamily units is very important to affordable housing. If you have a town with nothing but single-family homes, then where are people who can't afford single-family homes supposed to live? So you have a homeowner that has chosen to expand the amount of available housing. You abandon them, treat them like garbage. Many of them step away from housing. Right? They don't want to be involved in renting because it's too much risk, which leads the corporate landlords to step in. Then you got BlackRock as your landlord, and then things get much worse. And then the same progressive will be out there, oh, BlackRock, this corporate landlord, this. It's almost like on the right where, you know, we talk about climate change. They don't want to do anything about climate change. And then, let's say in the future, things get really crazy for us. There's not going to be a moment where they're like, oh, wow, maybe we should have done something. There's going to be a moving of the goalpost. Right? Insanity. I spoke to the city clerk. City clerk herself and her colleagues were shocked about this. She says, oh, it's your house, change the locks, they can't be in there, This is a city clerk who is unaware of how bad things are. I speak to a supervisor for this ERAP program, this rental assistance program, which is at the heart of this issue. And she tells me that what I'm being told is incorrect, that they won't stand in the way of me evicting someone, which is actually incorrect. So in their minds, the policy that they're administrating is not as bad as it actually is. Think about that. You have people who are the administrators of government and this particular program who aren't even themselves aware of how bad the program is. If the people within the program are not aware of how bad it is, what hope do we have that the people know, that the politicians know? I'm sure that many politicians are not even aware of how bad things actually are. They think they're doing a good thing and keeping people off the streets, and totally clueless. Wow. So now the situation is my tenant's complaining about mouse droppings in his unit. Normally I would already call pest control, but I know calling pest control and having them not have access to this other unit is a waste of my money. The garbage is going to continue to attract pests. And what happens when there's another water leak, gas leak, and we need to take 3 days at my expense? Because actually I had a plumber show up, and I had to pay $150 for that plumber to show up and then leave, not be able to do his job because he can't get access. Complete dysfunction. This is the Baby Channel. The Baby in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell. Be well.